Hello, hello, and welcome, welcome, welcome. If you are dialing in, which look at those numbers, boys, people are just climbing in. All time, all time record potentially here with our live iCubed webinar. So as everybody dials in, and yes, you're in the right place if you're seeing our wonderful iCubed smiling faces. So let's do our thing, guys. What are you reading? Bore everybody with the interests that you have by
I
all
thought
means.
we agreed we weren't going to do this. I'm shocked.
No, we're doing it, but we are going to have a hard stop because I have a hard time with production and post-production when I'm trying to clip this webinar. So feel free,
Well,
have a few minutes to talk about yourselves.
this is a new one I just picked up. It is called Goliath's Curse. It is the history and future of societal collapse. So it basically talks about why every
Right.
modern society in history has collapsed, which we might not be far from. So I
No,
figured I'd
we're
check
getting
that
there.
out.
We're getting
What
there.
Jason didn't tell you is that it's a children's book that has lots of pictures
Yes.
in it.
Yeah, those pictures are lovely, I'm sure. That's a nice light read before bed.
Yeah, it's
Casting
uh it's
live
it's
from
not
his
it's not a
bunker,
page turner,
Jason
I'll tell you
Morris.
that.
What's that, Andy?
I said broadcasting live from his bunker, Jason Morris.
Yeah, exactly.
Literally, look at this guy. We're like, do you have a flashlight, Jason? Anything? All right, Kevin, what do you got?
Normally I'm working through two or three books at the same time, and I can't wait to talk about all of them right now, actually, for the last couple of weeks. And this isn't a plug, but I've been reading a lot of economic news, a lot of indicators as we are launching our 2026 industry intelligence report. Which is available now. So everything that I've been reading for the last few weeks has really been about economic conditions, job forecasting, state of the industry, et cetera. Shoulder deep into the HR world right now.
Committed to your craft. We love to see it. We love to see it. Andy, what do you got? Better come something
I'm actually
good.
reading a book called Primal Intelligence. The Cliff Notes is it talks about how just innate intelligence we all have. It's not that logical, set thinking mode that gets beat out of us in schools. And if you go back to that, it talks about how like special forces operators use this to be more successful and so forth. So it's a good kind of counterbalance to the power of AI and logical computer thinking.
Well, smarter than me. Okay.
And what about you, Bianca?
What, Nick hasn't, it's not even Nick's turn yet.
Oh
Yeah.
wow, I'm going to give you extra time to think, aren't I? Well, I had enough with reality over the holidays, so I turned to fiction. I actually read three books. One of them is called something along the lines of "Secret of All Secrets" or "Secret of Secrets" by Dan Brown. He's one of my favorite authors, and he
I
comes
read
out with
that too.
and it comes out with a book once every 32 years. It was incredible. And then
It was good.
I read Nelson DeMille's and his son Alex, Nelson's last book before he died, which was really good. And then what else did I read? I'm in the middle of a Vince Flynn book right now. So yeah, I've been reading a lot of fiction. The nonfiction stuff is depressing me lately.
100%.
Wow, we
No.
got somebody raising their hand already. Liz, what did we say to upset you?
Put it in the chat, Liz. Put it in the chat. Or maybe she's high-fiving you like, yeah, all right.
Oh, thank you.
She's
That was
making
awesome.
it.
I can keep
Let's see.
going.
Frank says Lollapalooza, the uncensored story of alternative rock's wildest festival.
Love
Cool.
it.
That was way cool,
I'll
actually.
put that on my list for sure.
As ever, yeah, like no way am I reading anything serious. Although, I mean, the most serious and factual book that I read, my nonfiction is Henry did get a new dinosaur book from the library. So we are going through the crustacean period and just kind of learning about the specifics there. Outside of that, fantasy baby, I am taking on, and if you know, you know, and fantasy nerds unite. I'm rereading Patrick Rothfuss King Killer Chronicles, and if you are a fan or if you know anything about Patrick Rothfuss, you are mad as hell as I am, and he's probably never going to finish the next book. But we'll just keep going, and we'll just enjoy what we got, I guess, is all we can say. So anyway, holler at us in the chat. We're gonna launch things in a second. I'm gonna do a proper launch here because, like I said, it's tough in post. When we're just kind of blending this conversation into the one that we're really here for. He's still got time before he catches up to, oh, don't even get me started on George R. R. Martin, okay? Let's not. Jon Snow is still dead, okay? In my timeline, Jon Snow is still dead. So we got problems. Anyway, okay, ready?
Wait,
We're
did any of you
going
guys
real.
know that somebody could actually put their own AI people into our or AI
Yeah.
tools into our webinars? I mean, I'm floored by this.
Well, welcome to the new millennium, my friend. Like this is what a time to be
No,
alive.
I mean, I knew we could do it, but I didn't think you could insert it into somebody else's webinar. I'm really impressed.
Yeah, well,
Okay.
hey,
All right, let's go.
everything's a
Yeah,
bot.
sorry.
Jason's getting antsy in the dark over there. Okay. Five, four, three, two, for real, and a really real. Welcome everybody to iCubed Advisors webinar. This is a popular one. We have over 223 and climbing attendees live with us here. We're so excited to have you. The chat has already gotten started, and we've already talked your ears off about silly things for the first 5 minutes, and we have a lot to cover, so we have to get through it. If you're joining us here today, you're here to talk about the 2026 background screening outlook. So without further ado, let's get into it. Kevin, tell us about our sponsor today.
Yeah, first, thank you, Bianca, and a big thank you to Kazuna. Kazuna helps adjudication teams make faster, more confident, and more defensible decisions when reviewing background check reports. They layer directly on top of existing CRA report delivery, applying configurable policy automation and research-backed risk signals to produce consistent, job-relevant outcomes without changing current workflows. So if you'd like to learn more, contact Megan at Kazuna.solutions. That's Kizuna dot solutions.
Awesome. And yeah, we'll be sharing some info from them. Thank you so much for sponsoring such an interesting and great tool and a problem solve for a lot of CRAs and end users alike. So we love to see it. Here's our panel, guys. I am Bianca Lager. Nice to meet you all. If you're new here, which I think we have a lot of folks new here. So we'll give everyone a really quick chance to introduce themselves. I'm Bianca Lager. I mainly do consulting for marketing and go-to-market sales teams. Anything where there's revenue growth involved, that's what I do best. Jason, you want to give your quick 30 seconds on you, if you can keep it to 30 seconds.
I'm Jason Morris, and I focus my most of my time on expert witness work, M&A advisory, a lot of recruiting, and I do a little bit of consulting, but not too much. A lot of these guys, you guys do a lot of that for us.
And time.
Uh,
Nick?
I'm Nick Fishman. Nice to see you all. Thank you for being here today. What I focus on primarily is go-to-market strategy, sales and marketing initiatives, and overall growth strategy. I also spend a lot of my time working on iCube's media engagement through webinars and all other tools. And that's pretty much what I do.
Nick's the reason for the season. He's brought us all here together today. So thank you, Nick. Andy.
Hey, everybody. Andy Hellman. On the consulting side, focus mainly on global and compliance and privacy issues. Global compliance and privacy, not so much the FCRA stuff. That's me.
So concise. We love it. Kevin.
Maybe.
And I'm Kevin Bachman. I focus primarily on operational strategy. How do we run the business? How do we talk to customers? How do we take leads through the pipeline, implement and onboard successfully without losing that revenue? I work a lot in strategy, M&A, helping organizations kind of be the best version of themselves, position themselves for a sale. And I'm also our team researcher, our industry analyst. How many screens does the market expect to see? How many components do we expect to sell? I'm the data guy, so I think a lot about the numbers.
And that's a well-balanced team, my friends. Jason, you want to tell us a little bit about iCubed, although we kind of covered it.
I
So
think we
anything else you
just
want to,
did.
any other
Very
We're good.
quickly.
any other color you want to add here?
Just yeah, again, we're your go-to people in all things background screening industry. If there's special projects you have or things that you need a third party to do, we're there for you. Everything else is self-explanatory.
Awesome. Nick, what are we learning about today?
Okay, so we're going to start with us talking a little bit about what we personally are trying to accomplish in the new year. And then we're going to move on really quickly to talk about what's going on in the economy around us and how do we expect that to impact our industry this year. There's no doubt that 2026 is going to be a big year as far as M&A activity is concerned, and we're going to highlight what we think is going to happen. And most importantly, and sorry for the foreshadowing what we're going to talk about, but opportunities for CRA growth. No secret, 2026 is going to be a challenging year in our industry, but we have some go-to advice that you can use for how to continue to grow, even when things aren't so great. And then, of course, there is no webinar without talking about artificial intelligence and its impact on this industry. We're going to dig a little bit deeper this time. We're not just going to talk about, oh, AI is coming to this industry, but we're going to talk about how it's going to be used in 26 and how it's evolving in our industry.
And
Excellent.
Nick's going to
Yeah.
launch our poll question, right? Andy, actually, walk us through our resolutions.
Um, sure. So,
I audible
um,
there for you, bud.
Yeah, that was
yeah.
abrupt.
So we thought we'd start this with a little bit of kind of personal, professional, just real quick, what we're looking at, because I think everybody's seen all the posts going out on LinkedIn right now. Now is really the time to kind of start and frame your year. What do you want to get done this year? So I'll kick it off on my side. For me, I'm a huge fan of AI. I love playing with it. I love doing everything AI. And my resolution is actually to try to do stuff without AI on occasion and not become totally reliant so that end of this year, I can still create a formula in Excel on my own, or I can still construct a coherent paragraph without having to use AI to write it for me. So that's my big take for the year.
Nick, what about you?
My thing this year is really, at least as it pertains to this industry, is turning lemons into lemonade. I alluded to it when we were talking about our agenda, but a down year in the industry or a down year in hiring doesn't need to be a down year for CRAs. And I'm really going to focus my time and attention on helping CRAs figure out how to have a good year when things aren't so great. So I think I'll leave it at that.
Kevin?
I very much want to deepen our already existing base of industry data, focusing specifically on the stories that we can tell to end users, to vendors, the suppliers in our space, and the CRAs. There's a lot of, I'd say, inconsistencies around what many of us think in the industry, what is actually happening in the industry, what's going on with hiring. So, kind of calibrating and telling better stories around the true lay of the land in our space is something I'm thinking a lot about for the next 12 months.
Hey, and I want to
Jason?
throw out a shameless plug too while we have this many people on the webinar. One of the things that this group has talked about collectively doing this year, and we are going to do, is what we think is the first industry survey of CRAs, understanding what your thoughts and attitudes about the industry are, what your clients are thinking. And we want to be able to share that news back with you so that you can learn from it, not only what your peers are doing, but you can share with others where you think this industry is growing. So look for that in the first quarter of this year.
Awesome. Jason, how about you?
I think for iCubed is to grow our bench and bring on and possibly some more talent to help our growing client list. And for me personally within iCubed is to grow the recruiting practice. It's something that I absolutely love doing. I'm looking at the list of attendees, and there's like a lot of people on here that I've been able to place over the years. And one of the things that's most rewarding is, I mean, I think like 95% of the placements I've done are still with the original place I placed them, which is fantastic. It's an honor to place some of these people, and it's incredibly rewarding to get people jobs. I love it. So I want to expand that. Maybe we'll start doing some lower level positions. We typically only do VP and up right now, but there's a lot of opportunity there. So look for that and information on that coming over the next couple of months.
Yeah, there's a lot, and it's not lost on us. And I think one of the reasons we wanted kind of to pause at the beginning of this webinar and just kind of put into context, like, who are we? Why are you here? Why are we here? But there's a lot to cover here. Obviously, jobs, and there's a lot of movement in the industry right now with people changing jobs. With the internal side stuff, Andy and Kevin really focused on how we help, run your companies better, how those operations look. Nick and I are much more external side thinkers, And for me personally, I've been really growing a lot of my speaking engagement opportunities, and I'm loving that. I'm loving helping organizations learn how to build their leadership skills and how to translate that to great go-to-market leadership. So, with all that said, let's get into one of the aspects that Kevin was alluding to. He's chomping at the bits. He wants to get into the data, but we need to hear from you people. Nick, please do launch that poll. We want to hear from you guys right now when we're going to get into the nitty gritty here. We're going to get into the weeds of first things first, the economics of it all. So, compared to 2025, how do you expect your organization's revenue or volume to trend in 2026? Now, this is great, and this is a great opportunity for us all to get together. And we really wanted to give you an opportunity to benchmark against your peers, against other organizations here anonymously. Nobody's gonna know, what you're answering here. But what do you expect to see? Do you expect to see high growth? Is that over 15%? Moderate growth, where maybe 1 to 14, stable, relatively flat. You're basically, gonna break even. Are you looking for down growth? What does that look like? Is it significant? Is it kind of yeah, we're gonna, we'll be in the red, but that's sort of expected. So we'll give you about, I don't know, five,
10 seconds.
4, 3, 2, 1, and close that
Okay.
poll, please, Nick. All right, let's share those results with everybody. And as we get into the next indications here, we're expecting growth. We're bullish. We're looking at growth, and we're really planning to see revenue growth in 2026. Okay, Kevin.
Yeah, so I think this is one of those cases where contradictory information can be true all at the same time. One thing I mentioned I wanted to talk about here, and for example, Jason. Jason thinks and talks a lot about interest rates. I think that's both very important and not very important at the same time. Why is it not important? It's not important because many CRAs live in a microeconomic environment, right? You're not a trillion-dollar company. What happens in Asia doesn't necessarily affect your business next week. And I think some of that optimism or microeconomic conditions is related or is reflected in the results we're seeing right here. I'm shocked to see so many people saying we're going to get high growth, we're going to get moderate growth. But on a microeconomic level, that doesn't surprise me at all. Macroeconomic, we're going to continue to see smaller, lower screening volumes. And that has been a trend that we've seen for the last 4 or 5 years. 2026 GDP is projected to be the lowest in the last 5 years. We're just going to continue to see a continued weakening in economic conditions and screening volumes. That creates opportunity, but I think we all need to know right here and now as we head into 2026, we're not going to see a rising tide lifting all boats economic world like we did post-COVID in 2021 and 2022. Business is going to be harder to get. You're going to have to fight harder to get it. You're going to have to fight harder to keep it. And we're not just going to be living in a world where everybody's quitting their jobs and we get those high turnover rates like we did a few years ago.
Valid point. Input, Jason,
Floor's
Nick.
open, fellas.
I think a lot of it, like Kevin said before, I'm very interested and watch very closely interest rates because they have a huge effect on business and especially business growth. I've said it 1,000 times on these webinars that revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, and cash is king. Well, when we're on a king, you got to borrow money, or when we're on a cash, you got to borrow money, and those interest rates are very important when you do that because you're borrowing large sums of money that you got to pay back. So I think as we hopefully continue to see interest rates fall, that we'll see companies maybe taking a little more risk.
Nick, what do you think in terms of just like what our poll just said and in that bullish kind of outlook, the optimistic outlook of growth? Is that a feeling you think we have of, well, this is what I want to happen versus what should I plan for the economy? Or how is that dichotomy? Do you think that sort of meshes here from like a go-to-market perspective?
Yeah, I mean, I looked at those numbers and frankly, I was a little bit, I don't want to call it shocked, but I was surprised by those numbers.
I was
Uh,
shocked.
yeah, the economic data, at least what people are forecasting, does not show that we're going to have that kind of growth. But what also you have to take what people say uh, with a grain of salt because there are good ways of being able to increase your business and drive revenue in a bad year, like we were talking about before. I know we're going to talk about growth, but focus on your takeaway strategy, focus on your retention, focus on adding more products. Those are different ways you can improve kind of and fight through these economic cycles. So I am surprised by it. I'm not sure how exactly you balance that out, but I'm really happy to see that there's enthusiasm out there.
One
Yeah,
point I want to make before we pivot, and I'm going to talk about it now in case these webinars take us in a bunch of different directions. There's five of us here, so if I don't get back to it, private equity and publicly traded companies demand a rate of return and a new business growth that, frankly, if those owners and leaders of those companies don't deliver it, they will replace them with somebody who can. So relative to more, family owned or lifestyle businesses, it's like, oh, we had a good year. We were, but like it's okay. Like you get to certain businesses, and if they don't hit that number, they're going to bring in people who will. The reason I say that is if you look at the rate of return and we add up and segment publicly owned companies, privately funded companies, and we look at their growth and what they promise their investors, that revenue growth exceeds the total projectable growth that we see from the industry in 2026. That means that money that those companies have to deliver to their shareholders must come from somewhere. And in a time where economic conditions are flat to negative, there's only so much meat on that bone. Much of that revenue is coming from the existing client base in the industry, meaning
right. And it,
I'm going to take it.
Well, that's exactly right. And the larger companies that have consistent revenue or over, I don't know, call it 25 million in revenue, it's going to be more difficult for those guys to grow as it is for the smaller companies to grow because there's a lot of crumbs out there. It's easy to go from a million to 2 million and 2 million to 4 million. But when you get to larger numbers, it's harder to grow. These investors have put lots of money behind some of these companies. And like you said, the returns aren't there yet. So there's going to be some changes.
I think
Yeah,
the
that's
takeaway,
important to point out, right? I mean, 15% of $1 million is a smaller gap to close than 15% of 100 million. So
Right.
there's a lot to be said there. Jake Shapiro has a hot take on there in the chat, people of thinking that the growth should more, or ideally what he projects is that it's going to come from net new and not current client. And so that is interesting to think by segment, by kind of revenue band, how that differs with CRAs and depending on kind of, where your reach is there. But love to see it, and just kind of want to give a shout out to the chat
Yeah.
and say,
Yeah,
add your
Yeah.
2 cents here. And also, if you have questions, throw those in the Q&A. We're going to save time at the
And
end.
and Jake's right? But
I
we have to
agree with
remember
Jake too. Yeah,
somebody's net new gain is somebody's loss.
Yep.
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Andy had a thought. Andy, let's bring you in because I know you
Yeah,
want
I'll
to say
say,
something.
yeah, I mean, exactly what you guys were heading towards. I mean, that's the moral of the story is some of these companies may be growing, but that means someone else is probably losing. And so all the acquisition can be great, but if you don't also look at your retention numbers, you're going to end up net neutral. You're going to pick up some stuff, but someone else is going to take some stuff from you. So I think it's the competition's going to get fiercer, and you got to make sure you keep what you got because it's a lot harder to backfill it.
Yep.
Right. Well, I think this is a good time for us to pivot now to M&A activity. And I think there's a lot of people on here that are interested in this conversation. And it kind of is a nice pivot and segue into this conversation
For
because this
sure.
essentially is obviously all the growth that we're talking about affects this a lot. So, who wants to start? Who's chomping at the bits? Jason? Nick?
Here's what I will say. I think that the multiples that we've seen in the past are gone. I think that
For
you
now,
have
for now,
for
Jason.
now, for now,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
now,
yeah.
until the a lot of the M&A kind of calms down a little bit, and some of these stupid investments that some of these PE firms made are kind of gone. Things will right size, but paying 10 to 20 times EBITDA for a declining market, they're starting to see that, and I think that you're going to see a lot of private equities shuddering to get out as quickly as they can. And when they get back in, or the ones that get back in, are going to get back in at more reasonable levels of multiples. But we are definitely seeing those trade multiples falling.
Yeah. I talked to Hanan Glembowski from Stifel last week, and I wanted to get a sense from him about what he's seeing. And it's no secret, that the last couple of years have been, don't call it dead because a few deals happened, but they were really quiet compared to what the previous 3 to 5 years brought out. One thing that Hanan told me, though, is that there are currently 12,000 private equity owned companies in the United States at this time, and the average tenure on those companies is 7 years. Now, if you want to apply that to this industry, look at the private equity money that came into this industry over that time. And there are some big deals that are waiting to happen in 2026. Now, I'm going to pick up on exactly what Jason said. Those multiples, I don't think they're going to be the same thing that we saw a few years ago. But what I do think we're going to see is I think in the first quarter to first half of the year, I think we are going to see a larger company in this space that is private equity backed will transact. And then as a result of that transaction, I believe we are going to see them merge or purchase another large CRA. And this is nothing against First Advantage, but there can't just be one dominant company in this industry. And I think that these organizations are seeing that, and they need to and they need to pool resources in order to compete with that. So I
Yeah.
do think that's going to happen.
Yeah, Nick,
Um,
Nick and Jason
yeah.
have some interesting points, right? To Nick's last comment there, and we see it on the screen. I just don't think owners of larger CRAs are going to tolerate one single industry behemoth.
Mhm.
Um, so I fully expect more pair ups at the top. Valuations, we talk about how things change. I think it changed for a couple of reasons. As interest rates rise, money isn't as cheap as it is. I also think we're entering a phase where if you're looking to sell your business is being valued on simply the numbers, right? And we have to stop thinking like Joan's great at customer service, therefore my largest client likes us because they like Joan and my company's more valuable for it. I don't know. That's a lot of risk. So I think numbers matter, and I think companies looking to sell, we're past the point where there is significant intrinsic value beyond just the book of business. I don't know if we're seeing a lot of organizations with that really key piece of technology or that super unique client concentration that makes a company more valuable than the numbers on the piece of paper indicate. So that for me is a big reason why valuations and prices will decline in the near future.
To
Yeah.
grab
So now bringing this back to kind of advice for CRAs that are on this call, if you are a seller, then I think if you are holding out for the largest multiple you're going to get, you're going to want to wait a little bit until things improve, and hopefully they do. If you're a buyer in this market, there could be some value out there for you, and I think we are going to see towards the middle or latter part of the year. I think we're going to start to see a lot of transactions.
Nick, haven't we haven't we lived in that, oh well, I'm just gonna wait as a seller, I'm gonna wait. Isn't that like a 4 year story where everybody thinks
Well,
the future number is gonna be higher? Because I see it going in the opposite direction.
yeah, I hope it's not, but I think we have to look at the economic conditions as a moment in time. One thing that we've all learned, we've all been in this industry for a very long time. And when things look really bleak, and they do, we all tend to get really pessimistic about what the future looks like. And it ends up becoming a moment in time. I don't think that forever employment is going to be suppressed. I don't expect that we will never see growth in this industry again, but I can't tell you when it's going to happen. I just think it's going to happen. Now, going to your specific point, it depends what kind of ownership structure based on whether you need to get out or not. If you're an individual owner and you have and you have the legs to stay with it, great. But the private equity people that need to get a return on their investment or need to get out of these investments, they're going to be pressured to sell.
Big time.
Yeah, and I got sent a question privately that I want to put in front of you guys, and it really helps us, I think. I mean, I think you've already kind of laid out what that looks like, but especially in considering smaller CRAs. So the question is, what does the trailing 12 months of small CRAs look like? Obviously, more M&A happening expected with the larger CRAs, but what about smaller ones who seem to be aging out? So there's a couple things in that question that I think are interesting. So in thinking about like how defensible is your trailing 12 months here? How does that look like? I think you guys answered that a little bit, just in the sense it's like, listen, you're not going to get a large multiple of the valuation of your company here. That's probably to be true. But what about that sense, and you're touching on a little bit, Nick, of like, if you're a smaller CRA, like what is the advice here of like, or what do you expect to see trend wise of some of these smaller CRAs who, and this question says, seems to be aging out, but that kind of process of like, what do I want to do with my business? What is the exit look like? What is that next step? So, any more thoughts you have to share on there would be great.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I intended to kind of think about or talk about this a little bit when we talk about growth, but maybe it's time for smaller CRAs. This is, by the way, not advice for everybody. This is advice, for those that really are thinking about getting out. Maybe it's time to merge. Maybe it's time to put your business together with another that operates and create synergies so that you can create more value, and whether that more value leads you to buy other companies or to eventually sell to a larger company. I do think that there is good opportunity, and this would be a good market to consider doing something like this at this time.
I
I
I love
think
I love that question, Bianca. And if you're willing to share afterwards, I want to find that person because they're going to be my new BFF. Because that question really
You'd
combined
like him a lot. You'd like him a
that
lot.
that question really combined two things at once. And one is like, hey, smaller companies, and that's where I go back to the microeconomic environment. I expect uh, like all across the board, and all those experiences can be true because you're governed by microeconomic conditions, not macroeconomic conditions because of your
Yeah.
size. The other thing about aging out, and I'll make this point quick, um, as we think of when we start talking about AI and trends and required levels of investment, reshuffling of roles and responsibilities, I just think you have the CRA owners who have done this for 30 or 40 years that no judgment aren't willing to go try and build a better mousetrap at 65 years old. I think, they're going to see the AI landscape and what the sales and marketing engines need to be to generate positive growth in the future. And they're going to say, listen, this was a fun 30-year ride, but I'm not signing up for this. And that's where we're going to see a lot of M&A at that part of the market is people saying, this was an awesome ride and I'm done.
or you'll also see very sophisticated small CRAs. I'll call them less than 8 or 9 million that do run really good businesses. They're investing in their business. They're growing their business through those investments. They're hiring the right people, and they're growing, and they can continue to do that. The key is be a well-run business.
Yes.
Make sure that you're watching your store. Make sure you're watching everything. Make sure you know what the competition's doing. Make sure you know what your clients are doing at all times. Like there's a lot of things you can do as a small business and be nimble and make changes in order to adapt.
Yeah. And I'll say this, like it's a very difficult thing when you're kind of thinking about an exit, but you don't want to be like, my company's for sale, blue light special over here, right? You want to, and especially in this tight-knit community of people in the industry, you want to be really careful and discreet about this. It really does help to talk to an advisor, and it's not just IQubed, but there's other ones in the industry to gently and kind of softly navigate how that works. I've did it personally myself, and that's how it's done. But I think that you really do need to have like professional, strong advice there. And there are ways to discreetly have this conversation so it doesn't look like, yeah, you're lighting up the joint with the for sale sign and happy to give it to the lowest bidder. But also able to navigate that through. There's some great comments I'll
Well,
point out in the chat here too about that. So please get involved in there, folks.
I also think it's really, really important for business owners, and you don't see this a lot because every business is funded through VC now, but not in this industry, but all industries. Um, is you shouldn't be building a business to sell. You should be building a business. If you get to sell the business, that's great. But if the entire time you're trying to build enterprise value and you're focused on the wrong things and not just building a real business, you're probably going to fail.
Yes and no. I will say that I think that in some ways, and especially in this industry, I think they don't think enough about that. They don't think
Well,
enough
look at the
about,
numbers though. Look at the venture capital numbers.
yeah,
If you're hitting if you're batting 200, you're a success. That means 80% of the companies that are starting up and you're investing in are failing.
yeah, fair. I mean, very
Also,
fair.
add on to that too. The other challenge of that is if you're going just for the sale, sometimes you're making decisions that aren't as sustainable, right? You're trying to juice your
Exactly.
numbers a little bit. You're trying to get earnings to look good. You're running really lean. You're pushing people really hard. You get into an environment like now where the multiples are down maybe, and you don't want to sell. Well, now you're stuck operating that business for another 2, 3 years till the market comes back, and then you kind of, you made your bed, you
Yep.
got to sleep in it. And that's, I think, one of the philosophical strategic challenges of building just to sell.
Yeah,
Yep.
absolutely. There's a balance. There's a very delicate balance that needs to be struck there because yeah, or else you create a house of chaos and
Walk and chew gum at the same time. Well said, guys.
well, wouldn't that be nice? Okay, any last thoughts on M&A until we move on? We're going to talk about growth.
Let's roll.
Let's do it. All right. We talked about it a little bit. Let's get back into it. So, how are we doing this, guys? Like, let's get into the nitty-gritty of just like revenue teams. Jason can't wait. Jason, you're in the dark though, so like when you wave your hand, it's hard to see. Maybe I don't know.
All right, well,
Get a
let's note
flashlight.
that. So I have a new monitor coming. My camera sucks. It'll be better next time. Um, I, as far
Please.
as
No,
I'm
no, no.
concerned,
This is perfect. This is perfect. We don't need to see you any clearer. This is great.
I mean, I'm not gonna continue beating the drum of, add salespeople, because everybody knows that. But adding product is really, really important. Figuring out how to sell new products is really, really important. And looking at same store sales and increasing those is even more important. So you want to grow. The opportunity for growth is obviously, like I said before, add sales, good salespeople, good marketing program. But number two or number 1A would be add product, learn how to sell those new products, and then the third, like I just said. So I'll stop there.
Nick, you got to be chomping at the bits to get into this more. Come on. Oh, are you on mute?
I am. Okay. Yeah, I'll hop in.
Wait,
Nick, you're
Nick,
still
we
on
can't
mute.
hear you.
Yeah, because I think Nick's on mute. Um,
You're not, but we can't
hire,
hear you.
building off Jason's comments, hire good salespeople. And we all know the difference. This is where it's tough. We're humans, and I'll extend this thought to your leadership team, your ops teams, etc. There is so much good talent available in the marketplace. People that wouldn't sniff your opportunity 5 or 10 years ago, but right now might be really excited to step in and play a leadership role at a 5, 10, $15 million CRA. I think we're at a point now where people are really excited about opportunities to step back from the machine and really make an impact at a smaller company in an industry that they love. I continue to be surprised, I guess not surprised because it's human nature, at teams that just try and run it back every year. And like you're gonna get what you get. If there are stronger people in the marketplace, you should actively recruit them, hire them, and replace those in your companies that aren't. So I think that's a good opportunity for growth. Another thing I'll just point out, because there's a number on a screen, there's about 600 to $650 million in revenue that we expect will leave its current provider and go to new providers. So if we're saying, what do we think the revenue churn looks like in 2026? For our industry, there's a number right there. $600 million will go to different providers.
Yep.
How do you get your piece of that is really what we're talking about here.
Can you guys hear me again?
We
Yes, we
got you.
got
Yes.
I don't know what happened. Yeah, so let's piggyback off of what Kevin said and now bring that back to our M&A conversation, right? So not only are you going to see, the organic trading of accounts like we've seen in this industry for a very long time, but when M&A happens, when a company is acquired, it is inevitable that they lose a lot of business as a result of it. Look, integrations are messy. We all know that if you've been through them. So there's a lot of business to be able to take away. That's a big thing. You got to also focus on putting smiles on your customers' faces every single day and adding value. Retention needs to be priority number one of your customers. And then the other thing is remember that there are ways to grow without growing your revenue. And that comes into another thing we're going to be talking about. We're going to talk about AI in a little bit. There's no better way to decrease expenses by using things that make you more efficient, and things that make you more efficient make you more profitable. And I think that people need to spend a lot of time thinking through that. Um, Specific products, there is one that I think on this call universally we agree with in this industry is that, in my opinion, every background check that is conducted in the United States these days
should include a digital identity validation. We are at a point where it is crazy that companies continue to run background checks when there is an opportunity that there could be a flaw based on who somebody says they are, or even an AI pretending to be a human being trying to get hired. So to me, I try to find products like that and drive the message home to your clients about what happens if you don't run that, or the possibility of what could happen if you don't run that.
And let me tell you, from a litigation standpoint, not validating identity properly is a huge issue. I've seen several cases over the last couple of years on that, and there's a really easy fix for that. But that goes back into the third point I was making before about same store sales. If you're not watching your customer base and adding product for them that could benefit them or even keep them in compliance, then you're not doing yourself any good.
Yeah,
There's
Nick
there's a
says that, Jason, and our ears perk up, right, in a deposition about the power of digital identity. To
Yep.
Nick's comment, that also starts with us as screeners. I agree with everything that Nick had said. I don't know if CRAs are fully on board with that yet. And that's where access to partners who can provide digital identity solutions can either propel you or hamstring you based on your relationships with providers, platforms, etc.
Andy, what do you
Yeah.
think?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to tie this back to the book that I mentioned that I was reading. One of the lessons it has is that, the time to try bold or different or novel ideas is when there's a lot of disruption going on, where you're not seeing the same old thing that you've seen 100 times before. And with everything happening right now, down market, AI, who knows what's going on with the economy, it would say this is the time to try different stuff. And so you can use some of the same strategies, but looking at what can we do differently. So whether it's offering new products, digital identity, or doing things like that, how do we look at our customer base? I think of two things. One, digital identity. It really goes back to that with AI right now, we're creating whole new problems out there with the ability to go out and be this synthetic applicant, or for the North Korean hacker to get a job in a Silicon Valley startup or stuff like that. How do we solve this, right? I mean, this is an opportunity as well, with everything happening with AI for the industry. It's not just losing jobs, it's creating opportunity to make more revenue too. And I also kind of think another way that some of this stuff may create opportunity is that I remember multiple conversations. You go, you talk to a vendor, you tell them what your volume is, but you say, well, it's kind of up, down. I don't want to commit. If you're the provider, you're hesitant sometimes to take that contractor at a specific price. Well, if AI now lets you kind of handle those peaks and valleys a lot easier than you could before, think like verifications work. Can you agree to take on this client that maybe you were afraid to do before because you couldn't handle those peaks and valleys? Can you smooth that out with technology? Can you offer a price point now that maybe is consistent with your other clients? Can you merge with some other companies to then share and smooth out that volume and be more efficient at it? Like there's opportunities out there. It's hard to see them sometimes, especially when there's doom and gloom out there. People just want to hunker down, but now's really the time to go out there and be aggressive, try something different and disrupt.
Right. And
There's
Jason, we've all seen this. Jason, Kevin, Andy, I know you've been around for this, Bianca. Every time there is kind of a challenge in the market, like we don't even say downturn, that's when people come out swinging. That's when real innovation takes place. Um,
100%.
Yeah,
let
yeah.
me, I have one important point to make that we left off of this that I think that a lot of people discount and don't even consider when you look at opportunities for growth. Raise your prices. Do you have escalators in your contracts? A lot of sophisticated companies, they put escalators directly in the contract. So you know that every year they can raise prices by 1 or 2%. Like raising prices, 3 to 5% every year on a client or on certain services that are costing you more to do. Um, that is low hanging fruit that nobody's even touching.
And
yep.
Jason, I'm glad you said that, right? Because we've tested that in the market. We've tested that with end users. We have great data on tolerance for price increases. We have
Yeah.
great data on the percentage of customers that will balk or complain, et cetera, et cetera. Really glad you said that because, hey, that's sometimes that's the easiest way to the solution.
I think
Yep.
Yeah.
there's so many good
Go ahead,
ideas.
Bianca. Go ahead.
Yeah, we're gonna have to press on, but I think that like we could have a lot, we have a lot of ideas here, and there's a lot of like really, these are all great initiatives. I will give my 2 cents that you cannot do any of this without good structure on your
Right.
revenue team. And we can talk, and I talk about being a part of sales and marketing initiatives and as a consultant. The thing I do best really is revenue operations and helping people structureize their revenue teams. So what that means is you have this great sales guy, and he's been great for 5 to 7 years. He's not always the best guy to run your sales team. He's not always the best guy to suddenly become your CRO. It's a two different skill sets. And what you need is discipline and structure when it comes to executing all of these initiatives. And I think there's a lot of probably business owners or sales leaders on here right now that's like maybe even a little overwhelmed by all these ideas because it's like, oh, we got to be doing this, we got to be doing that. And so, we give you this advice and these ideas with a grain of salt to also say, you need bandwidth and you need to be able to have strong leaders on your team that are going to choose the right priorities and be able to execute them well because you'll fail if you try to do too much all at the same time or try to take on something or try to think that there's a magic bullet in here. But having good structure within your team and good discipline and how you're going to execute these and making sure the quality of hire, not just in the sales guy and or girl, a lot of really good sales girls. I can't cut myself short out of that one of being able to execute the actual client facing, but how do we organize? What are the KPIs that are driving these things forward? How are we choosing, which initiatives? Because don't get messy, guys. That will blow it every single time. Nick, sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead.
No, I mean, there's nothing I'm going to say that's better than what you just said. And I agree.
Love when you say that to me.
Well, here's the thing. Everybody tends, and this is really good practical advice. If you're sitting, I don't care what seat you're sitting in. If you manage people, you manage processes, you can't do everything at once. Choose three things. And I always say this, choose the three most important things. Do those really well. If something else comes in on those three things, take one of the three things away or finish one of those three things and replace it. And it doesn't need to be three, but it needs to be manageable.
Great call, guys. Great call. So as Nick loads we have one more poll question. As Nick loads that, I want to take a step back and thank again our sponsor, Kazuna. As individualized assessments become really a standard part of every background check, then Kazuna is here to provide an embeddable decision layer, which brings policy automation, modern risk science, and candidate context into the adjudication process. It's built with criminologists and compliance leaders. They enable teams to scale individualized, defensible decisions while reducing the manual review and inconsistency that is prone to occur in the screening process. So to learn more, contact Megan at Kazuna, that's KIZUNA.solutions.
Yeah, and if can one of you guys, like, since I have the host panel up, I can't share, but if you have that one sheet, Kevin, I'd love to share it in the chat because I think there's a lot of people excited about Kazuna, and it would be really awesome to share that with everybody. But
Let's see what we can do, and if we can't, we'll certainly include it in our
follow up.
Follow up.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. That's an exciting resource. Okay, pivoting though, we have about 10 minutes. We're going to try our best to get through it because this is a big one, AI adoption. So you have a poll up in front of you. What is your timeline for integrating AI into the production, fulfillment, and generation of consumer reports? So we're talking about AI specifically with your operations. Are you active? Are you short term? Are you long term? Or are you skeptical? So we really want to give you guys again a situation where you can benchmark with other people here in the industry to say, practically speaking, how is this happening within your company right now? In terms of your operations, there's a lot of different ways you can, have ChatGPT help you write some sales emails. That's not what we're talking about here. We're talking about how you're fulfilling reports. So counting down, you have 5, 4, 3, 2, one more second. Let's close the poll and let's show the people what we got here. Yeah, we're up there, fellas. What do we think about this? And let me move on to the next slide so we can talk about AI a little bit more.
If I was in the PBSA annual conference during some of the large room breakout sessions with AI, to me that was a very dismissive, pessimistic room when it came to the adoption of AI. So this is another case where I am surprised to see the optimism around AI in our space. And I do think the second answer is a bit of kind of a placeholder. It's an optimistic placeholder. of, yeah, we think we're going to do it. It looks like a good idea. How many of those get off the dock? I'm not sure, but those are kind of
Yeah,
my
Andy,
thoughts.
what do you think?
It's great to see. I do feel like there was a lot more skepticism, even not that long ago. But I also look, using AI myself fairly regularly, the capability of it in the past 12 months has just come so far along so quickly. And the number of companies out there selling solutions has just exponentially exploded. So, not totally surprised by it, but it's good to see.
Yeah, I have two reactions. First of all, anybody that's skeptical, I certainly don't want to embarrass anybody. I'm sure you have good reasons why you don't think that this is a long-term play, but please call me and we can talk a little bit more about that. The other thing is, I want to shout out to Robert Reddick, who left a comment in the chat saying everyone uses AI, no one admits that they use AI. Truer words have never been spoken.
Yeah,
I,
that's like
I do
offshoring.
think, yeah, I'm not judgmental again of the never AIers. I do think there's a lane. I do think that some people buy a Buick, some people buy a Bentley. And just because fewer people buy a Bentley, that doesn't mean the Bentley car company makes less money. Does it cost more? Does it take longer? Is it? Yeah, but there are buyers who are skeptical as well, and there's sometimes a good fit and a good match there. So
I think the question is,
there's a lane.
is it a Bentley? Is the outcome actually a Bentley? And then that's
Yeah,
where people get tripped
yeah.
up, right? Is that you want to believe that like by having a different process that is non-technology, non-AI, that you have the Bentley. Do you have the Bentley? Is the question. And a particularly interesting question just even to think about applying AI to operations. I don't know if you guys have any more thoughts on that.
But I think
Yeah,
that's
and well said, right, Bianca? Because I've said for years, like that's a great courtroom battle. When lawyers like, hey, you have all these automated tools. What do you mean you don't use them? And the other lawyer is like, well, you have all these tools, but like these are still human beings making decisions. Nobody looks at the computers and let the best lawyer win.
Yeah, 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 for sure.
Go ahead, Andy.
yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Andy. I'm sorry. You first, please.
no worries. Yeah, I think that it comes to just how, with everything that you're doing, how do you differentiate it? How do you set that value prop? I do agree there can be a lane as pro AI as I am with a lot of things. To have the non-AI, great, but then you have to make sure that you can show why it's additional value. Simply saying to the market that we don't use I don't think is going to be that differentiator. I don't think that's going to be sufficient. You're going to have to say why you're the Bentley. Why is your process better for not having used it? And if you can do that, then great. I think that there will be a market for that. Probably a niche market, but I think you can do it.
Don't set strategy on a law, regulation, or court case that may never come. I mean that's the other side of that argument, right? Like it's like if you're hesitant to go in there because oh these people are gonna get sued, they're all gonna regret it. Are they?
This
Question for the
isn't
panel.
anything. This isn't anything new. I mean, think about all the companies in between 1995 and 2000 and now said, "I don't need a web page. This internet thing's a fad." Like my clients like to fax me. They like to pick up the phone and call me and talk to me about the reports. Like this thing's never going to work. And I heard that a lot,
Sure.
like a lot.
Yeah.
Um,
To,
so
to,
I
to
think
me, go ahead, Jason. I'm sorry. Finish
that's
that.
it. Just those same companies that are just simply going to resist it because they don't understand it or don't want to make the investment, you're going to be out of business in 5 years
And,
or
and, and
sooner.
that's where I think there's that wind out exit ramp strategy for a lot of the more family run older CRAs. And it's okay. Like they don't want to, and it's
No, they
okay.
don't want. And look, I say I paint a broad brush by saying they're all going to be out of business in 5 years. I mean, look, if two of them survive, great for you. I'm glad that you survived this, but most of you are going to fail.
Yeah,
I
I think the
will I
question
will
is,
as
go ahead,
uh,
Kevin.
no, well, I was just real quick as part of the research we do every year for our industry report, I'll look at 400 different company web pages, and 150 of them, 150 CRAs have web pages that are probably 5 years or older or more.
Atrocious. You can use the word atrocious. It's okay.
Yeah. So that's okay. That there is a huge segment of the market. I mean, the lower end of the market, the 80/20 rule, that's over $1 billion in revenue. There are hundreds of millions of dollars in the industry running through CRAs that haven't updated their websites in 5 pages. So
That's
we,
exactly right. That's exactly right. Like there's some things you can get away with here. You know
yeah,
what I
and all
mean?
these
Like
things can be true at the same time.
I say the word atrocious, but it's like, does it matter? How impactful is it to how you're running our business? Do we really need to rethink the design and spend 20, 30 grand on something that is you're going to get the same results for? So, I mean, there's a interesting thing to consider there. And I say this as a marketing person that is driven nuts when things don't look just right. But anyway, go ahead,
I want to
Nick.
hear what Nick's trying to say because he has a
Yeah,
point he's been
go
trying to
ahead,
make.
Nick.
It
Take the
better be
mic.
good, I guess. Well, a couple things. So I don't think the question anymore for any CRA should be, are you using AI? The question should be, how are you using AI? And I think that when we look at 2025 and we look about how we talked about AI, we now need to start talking about it a little bit differently. We have to assume people are using AI. And in most cases, you've proven based on the responses you've had that you are. So what do we think we're going to see in the coming year? I was going to ask AI to help me with this response, but I felt like it might be a little bit biased. So I went to my two favorite experts on AI in the industry and got a little bit of advice. So I want to shout out to Bill Wilder at InfoQuity and also to Chad LaFon at RPA Data Group. And so what the feedback that I got from them was to expect not only AI this year to be used in processes and helping improve processes and efficiencies, but expect to see AI generated products. Things like employment verification that can be all handled through AI right now. Also, things like court research.
Wait, shameless plug. Let Lanny make a shameless plug based on what you just
You know
said.
where he's going. Go ahead.
What was the shameless plug?
On our one of our upcoming webinars about
Oh, yes, yeah,
verifications.
yeah. Battle of the Bots. We have it coming up, coming soon. All right. And expect to see it in court automation. The other thing Bill Wilder told me is to expect companies really laying out concepts, whether they ever get put into production or not, but just to establish themselves as thought leaders in AI. So he thinks like very similar to like if you go to the electronics show or some of the car shows where they show these concept products that is going to be on display this year as well. And then as I talked to Chad LaFon, one of the things that he told me to watch out for is whether it's CRAs or just independent parties creating tools for HR people to manage their background screening process and to get the manual work out of that. So expect a lot of that in the coming year as well.
I want to take,
Andy, can you give him a little more clarity on what you're working on?
yeah, and I'll get to that before I lose my train of thought because I'll lose it otherwise, and I'll circle back on the battle of the bots. But one thing that you said, Nick, that I will take, I will not contradict, but take a little bit of issue with
No, go right
is,
ahead. I throw a
is
lot of things out there.
well, is that the AI can handle all the verifications. Like the companies I've talked to that are doing this, it can handle a lot, but not all. That
Yeah,
there's still a kick out, right? And so, but I think it's important to note that all these AI solutions, there aren't any out there really that are set and forget. It all requires some human intervention. It all requires some level of oversight. And it goes back to tying into what you were saying, Bianca, about the quality of your people. Because
Mhm.
now it's not that person that's just churning through cases or verifications. What's getting escalated are the problems, the edge cases, things like that. So the people that you do have on staff have to be even better. They have to be trained even better. And so AI may reduce your need for total staff, but I think it's going to increase your need for quality staff with what is left.
I
And
think that's a great way to wrap up almost like what we're saying in different kind of areas here. But w without to digress with that too much, finish your thought, Andy, and please do tell us more about the Battle of the Bots.
yeah, because this is so cool and interesting of what we can do with the bots and with agentic AI and also we're organizing a session currently planned for March 4th. We're going to get a few of the bigger names in the space to come on and do demos of their products and then have a panel conversation with them about what works, what doesn't work, what lessons have they learned, what are the limitations, what can it do, help do some more education for the audience about exactly where this technology stands right now.
And the bots are
it,
going to be on the actual panel, correct?
It'll actually be people, I think, and the bots are designed for verifications, not for panelists. So
Gotcha. Okay.
unfortunately,
Andy,
yeah, but we will have demos.
can I tee you up for something that you mentioned really quickly? Because I think it's important we address on the webinar. You talked about unintended consequences of AI, and I want to make sure that you at least address it in a soundbite and also get the point across that just because there are unintended consequences doesn't mean that it's not useful. So if you wouldn't mind just digging into that a little.
I'm trying to remember the point I made about that.
I
And
think what
everything
you
is so good that I can't remember it.
I think what you
Yeah.
were telling me, like a good example, everybody's going to start to use AI, or most are going
Oh,
to,
yes. Okay. I'm
and
with you now.
clients, well, like for
Yeah.
example, clients are going to start pushing back, saying, "No, you're saving money doing that. My price should go down." That's not necessarily the unintended consequence I was referring to, but things will break. That doesn't mean you throw
Yeah.
the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, because I don't think we know enough about the technology and the use cases to kind of figure out the things we need to be careful for, right? Every new technology, like I remember like electric cars came out, like, oh, these are so cool, these are so quiet. And then people that are, sight impaired, hearing impaired were having issues because they couldn't hear the car coming at the crosswalk. And so the car makers had to artificially put noise into the cars. But it's just things that we're not going to know about a new technology
Yep.
that we have to do. And I put some notes in here, kind of getting ready for this too, about the warning for people. Don't pick Betamax. There's this technology out there. There's a gajillion providers out there. You look at the numbers. There's no way a year from now, 2 years from now, all these providers are going to be there. There's going to be some massive consolidation. You want to pick the solution, the technology, the provider that's going to be around, hopefully, that has staying power. I don't know who that's going to be, but there's going to be some fallout from the industry, whether it is providers that get consolidated or just go away, whether it is weird things that happen with the technology that we didn't think about. So yeah, thank you for reminding me of that one.
Awesome. Well, I mean, there's so much to talk about, and I can't wait to have that whole separate conversation on AI and get into it. So stay tuned, guys, for invites on that. Nick, want to plug the next webinar coming up, though? I think we'll have one in between that.
Yeah, we've got a product spotlight coming up. I believe we're doing it on February the 12th, and it's with My Employment, led by Bob Mather and David Reed. So we're looking forward to a productive session, and you'll see invites out next week for that.
Awesome. And, guys, feel free to, of course, reach out to us. We really appreciate, I want to just shout out a couple people that were really active in the chat today. Jake, of course, Jimmy, Jennifer, Sarah, Tara, Shannon, Navin, thank you so much for even saying I wanted to read this out loud during the AI and I forgot. Hey, AI, why not use AI? There's a spectrum that you can use it for. It's just like seasoning, a little less or a little more for everyone, right? So sprinkle in some AI here and there. We love to see it. Thank you guys all so much for joining us today and adding your, thoughts and being able to benchmark, again with what you have going on and what you can learn from others. That's what we try to accomplish here, and that's what it's all about. Kevin, you want to say some last notes on our sponsor here to thank
Yeah,
them?
thanks again to Kazuna for sponsoring. If you're interested in being a sponsor on an iCubed, either product spotlight, a webinar, background check radio, reach out to us at iCubed. You can Kevin at iCubedadvisors.com. I'll make sure I circulate it with all of our partners and we'll get you up and running.
Awesome. Thanks again, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye now.